No, they couldn't be any other way than they were if you knew their story. So this idea that it was all about some chemical imbalance in their brain, it was genetic, it was just crazy. I mean, that's the craziest thing I could ever even imagine. I mean, that's just insane. And I want to add that NIH, National Institute of Health in Washington, they have this whole procedure. I've never heard this before, but they've had this procedure for like decades. That when there's any scientific controversy about an issue, a scientific issue, a research issue, they have like a trial. They form a jury. They call in. So in the case of this ADHD thing in 1999, they said, "Oh, okay, we need to settle this thing because it was so controversial." So they called in the greatest experts in the land to be the jury, like a dozen of these people. You know, like in Congress, you know, the congressional subcommittee thing. So the jury sits there, and then they call in all the experts to pro and con to present their scientific papers, present their evidence. You know, ADHD is a genetic, brain-based chemical, blah, 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 and other people saying, you know, no, it's ridiculous, it's a myth, or it's this, or it's that. So they did this whole thing. For a couple of weeks, this thing goes on. And it's hundreds of experts come and give hundreds of hours of papers. And the jury, you know, hashes out together, like a jury, all the data. They go back over the papers, the evidence, they debate, they talk. And mind you, like 99% of the research money that's available for researching ADHD is connected with the drug companies, and it's all looking for the genetic. So where is the ADHD gene? You know, just like before that, they were all looking for the alcoholism gene. Before that, you know, whatever. This whole genetic thing is, you know, it's so weird. But so the jury was like handpicked. It was a handpicked group of pretty pro ADHD experts, and yet the jury still concluded there was no scientific basis, or at least the prosecution or whatever, you know, had failed. The pro ADHD people had failed to make a scientific case. So the jury just sort of, it was like a hung jury. They just said, sorry, but we're, you know, we can't end this controversy. There's just no proof one way or the other. Who the hell knows, you know, what it is? That was it. So to this day, there is no actual scientific basis for anything called ADHD or anything else like it.
Basic skills to get along in this world, to get into college. And you've got to find a balance somewhere. And I just wonder how successful, because I don't know how the school is in establishing this balance.
You're right on the money. So do we guide children in our school? Yeah.
I don't know.
We do.
Tell me.
But we do it. I think then the question becomes, you know, is the guidance coercive or is it not coercive? The kids have to accept your guidance, or can they say no? Can you say to a child, you know, I really think it'd be good if you learn to read now, because you're 7. And, you know, the older you get, the harder it gets to learn. And you know you're going to need to know to read. You know, everybody needs to know how to learn to read. When you don't know how to read, whatever, you're going to fall behind. You won't be able, whatever you say. I mean, so come on, I really think you should start attending these reading classes. Anyway, but the child in our school, anyway, they can say no. Because and then my belief is, maybe it's not time yet. Maybe it really isn't their time to learn to read. Maybe that's next year is going to be the right time for them. And they know that. Well, they have damn good reasons for saying no. But I also think when guidance is like, you know, it's like parenting is a dance. You know, teaching is a dance. Offering guidance to children is a bit of a dance.
Mm-hmm.
That there are a million ways to offer guidance to a child non-coercively. You can do it by inspiring children. You can do it just by having an honest talk with them. You can do it by, you know, we suggest things to kids all the time. If I think a child has a particular gift, and he hasn't come up with an idea of his or her own, I might have an idea. Have you thought about trying this? You know, or have you thought about taking piano lessons? I could help you. Like if it's a poor kid, we could probably find a piano teacher that would maybe even do it for nothing during the school day. Would you like that? Because you're pretty good. You really seem to be into the piano. Right? And the child goes, really? Free lessons? Yeah. Okay. I mean, I call that guidance. And then you figure it out. You find a piano teacher who's willing to donate, you know, an hour or 2 a week to to work with an inner city child whose grandma, or whatever, mother, single mother, can't afford it, and so on. And when our kids get into 8th grade, I have to say that kids, again, though, it's amazing how much they do provide their own guidance. What happens sometimes in our school, we only go through the 8th grade, at least in our main school, and that's another, we do have a little high school extension, but not in our main body of the school. The kids still finish up and graduate at the end of 8th grade, and generally they go on to public high school. So they come into 8th grade, and let's say they haven't kept up with their math, because they don't like math. And they kind of avoided it, because it sucks, and they're not good at it. And they've had the choice to say no all this time. They will look ahead. So here I am. Oh, I'm in 8th grade. Wow. Oh, I'm going to be in Albany High School next year. Oh, right. They start thinking on their own about, so what am I going to need to know for 9th grade? Kids don't want to be stupid. Kids want to be successful, right? Kids want to be confident. Those are all instincts. Those are instincts. So generally what you see in our school is if a child is, behind, they will take responsibility for that, in 8th grade, kind of when the heat's on.
Kind of last.
It's a whole year. You don't know how many kids, just talking about math, how many kids I have taught the entire K through 8 math curriculum to in 3 months, 4 months.
I'm sure you could, yeah.
Because it's just not, it's not rocket science, and B, you see, the whole point is the core to our philosophy is when a child wants to learn, when you're not battling that resistance, when they're putting their heart and soul into it, they're choosing it, they learn so quickly, right? They just eat it up and get it over with. And so that's generally what happens. Thank you. The first thing I encourage parents whose kids are in public school to do is to get more involved and see what you can do. That's what Mary started our school for her son, but she first, met with the teacher many times, met with the principal, got involved in the PTA. I mean, she really tried to influence the system, to meet her son's needs better. She tried everything she could think of, and gave up in her case because it wasn't happening. Nothing was changing. But I encourage parents always to do it. That my editor for teaching the Restless, the reason she accepted the manuscript was because her son was a 6-year-old labeled ADD in Boston public schools. And it was cool. She took the manuscript in and showed the teacher and said, there's a school in Albany that they don't use any, and so no more Ritalin. I want you to adapt your classroom situation to meet my son's needs. He's just more active than other kids, whatever. And she won. In that case, they made some changes. Her son is still in the Boston public schools with no medication, and he's doing fine.